Welcome back to AWS Pi Day. It is our 5th anniversary of this broadcast that we're doing here on March 14th. It is significant in so many ways. It is Amazon S3's essentially the birthday, right, of the first time that it was made generally available. And so we're taking you on a journey here of showing you kind of like where we've been and where we're headed. And so right now we're back with another session. I'm Jasmine Kiles. This is my co-host, Adrian San Miguel. And we want to know in the chat, what is your favorite Pi Day tradition? Mine is probably going to be this hat for a very long time. It's the second year in a row wearing it, but I'm excited to hear what it is. I've heard of a lot of different traditions that might happen here, but that's not all we're here for today. Adrian, what do you think we're going to do next?
I don't know, but I have a pretty good inkling that it's going to be both delicious and filling. I don't have a specific Pi Day tradition, but I think I'm always going to remember wearing this hat. And I think I'm also going to remember some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. And most of the things that I deal with and have strong opinions on with my partners is data security and governance. And I understand we're joined by a guest today that's going to help us talk about exactly that. So if you wouldn't mind, sir, say hello, what your favorite pie is, and why you think pineapple belongs on pizza.
Hello, my name is Utkarsh. I'm a product manager at AWS, and my favorite pie. I think I'm a very. I do a lot of experiments in life, but with pie, I don't do any experiments. So my favorite pie is good old apple pie.
Oh, that seems to be a favorite. Like, there's been at least 3 other guests who have said apple pie. It's a classic.
It is.
It's a split loop. It's 3.14 and counting. I'm sorry.
Okay, so tell us what it is that you're going to be talking about. What do you do at AWS, and what do you do for customers?
Yes, I'm a product manager at AWS. I'm part of the SageMaker Unified Studio team, and I focus on SageMaker Catalog, which basically forms the foundation of data and AI governance within SageMaker Unified Studio.
That's awesome. Chat, we got a poll question for you. What is the primary use case for SageMaker Catalog? And Utkarsh, I'm sure you're going to tell us all about it.
Absolutely, yes.
So curious, what have you been hearing from customers that has kind of guided the way that you're thinking about going out and solving this problem? Because obviously there's going to be a ton of different ways to go about it, but really, really wanting to understand how you and your group are putting thought into practice here.
Absolutely. So when we talk to our customers, right, the first thing that we hear is we have data, so much data, and it's everywhere and scattered across so many different silos. And today, it's not just data, right? It's also your AI and machine learning models. It's also your Gen AI applications now. How do we enable our data scientists and analysts to find all of these assets? And how do we enable them to access them and consume them without slowing them down, but at the same time making sure that we are not compromising on governance?
Yeah. That's so interesting to me. So one of the things that we just saw in the session before this was about SageMaker Lakehouse. So how is SageMaker Catalog different?
Yes, SageMaker Catalog and SageMaker Lakehouse are slightly different, and I'm going to explain. So let's take an example. Let's say you have some data in your Amazon S3 bucket, and you want to query that data using one of the engines, let's say Amazon Athena. Now, Amazon Athena cannot go and directly query this data in S3 in an S3 bucket. What Amazon Athena needs is some configuration. Lakehouse provides that configuration, and essentially it's the technical metadata like your table name, your columns, your data types, as well as the permissions, whether the user who's trying to query this data, do they even have permissions to access the data in Amazon S3? So that's what Amazon SageMaker Lakehouse provides. And what SageMaker Catalog is, it provides a layer above it, and it allows you to add business context to your technical metadata.
That's fantastic. Because you can really kind of contextualize it and think about it as the governance layer directly interacting with the data as it needs to, so that thinking about it in a very broad sense of term, only accessing the things that matter to the business in the way that they need to be accessed in a way that's defined safely with guardrails. Is that about accurate?
That's absolutely right.
That is quite radiant if you think about it. That is just beaming with possibility, and kind of giving folks the warm fuzzies around how you can protect the estate while just giving folks exactly what they need access to.
Exactly, right? Like with what SageMaker Catalog allows you to do is enable discovery on top of your data. You have data across so many different silos. You can bring all of them together into one place and define business context, like your business descriptions, not just scriptive column names, but also your descriptions and your data lineage and data quality, things that help you build trust in the data, and then be able to access that data in a self-service fashion.
I like what you called out there. We tend to be, as tech practitioners, thinking about things in terms of security by obscurity, which really isn't the best way to do things anymore. I really like the way that you put that, Utkarsh. I think that's going to resonate with chat for sure, and with any of our data and analytics practitioners out there. So, it kind of leads me to the next question. How does it work? Is there a demo that you can walk us through to show us, practice in action?
Absolutely. Let me show you a demo.
Okay, please.
And I actually have a demo which exactly shows you what we've been talking about. So here I have a use case, a very common use case where we have a data analyst. He's part of, his name is Bob. He's part of a retail organization.
Oh, that Bob.
Bob is famous today. So he's part of a retail organization, and he has been tasked to do an analysis on the performance of individual stores within that organization. So Bob has access to some data. So let's see how Bob does that analysis using SageMaker Catalog and SageMaker Unified Studio, right? Here I am logged into my SageMaker Unified Studio. This is the home page. I'm going to select a project to start with. This is a sales analysis, so I already have a project called Sales Analysis. And what this project is, just to give our viewers a little bit context, it gives the SageMaker project is essentially how you work with data in SageMaker Unified Studio. You have project gives you access to data and access to tools and compute to be able to work with that data. And you can collaborate using a project. So you could have your data analyst, your data scientist, your data engineers all working in the same project with consistent access to data, but they could be using the tool of their choice.
Okay.
Right? So like a data engineer could be using ETL visual builder, or a data scientist could be using a notebook to build machine learning models, or a data analyst could be using a SQL editor. So let's take a look at the data tab. And what we can see here is what all access does Bob have. We can see that he already has access to some of the tables. For example, he has access to store locations, which would be very important for him to do this analysis on store sales. But what he doesn't have here is any sales data or anything that's related to transactions that can help him figure out how much revenue each store is making.
Yep.
So let's see how we can go and find this data in SageMaker Catalog.
Okay.
Yeah, because, we talk about your analysis only being as good or as high quality as the data is. So yeah, let's
exactly.
Jump.
So we'll go to the catalog and we'll write a simple search using a business term like sales.
Okay.
And you can immediately start seeing search results. So let's click on the first data asset. Now, what you're seeing here is there's a lot of metadata here.
Okay.
Right? It's not just the technical name of the table. It also gives you what kind of table it is. It's a table in the Glue data catalog, and you can see that there's a big summary here.
Can we get a little bit more of a zoom on that, please?
Absolutely.
Okay. A little more. I think that's good. Thank you.
Great. And you can see a lot of summary about like what this table is about, what kind of use cases does it solve. So the owner of the data has put in the effort to put all of these details into the catalog so that when someone is looking at this data in the catalog, they can understand this data really, really well, and they can use it properly in their analysis. You can see a README section and a bunch of technical metadata as well, which would be very important for Bob to be able to write a query correctly. And if we go to the schema tab, you can see that there's all the columns are specified here, but not just the names of the columns. There is also business names and descriptions, right? Another thing that you would see is Bob can also look at the data quality. This is what helps him build trust in the data, right? So he can see here that this data asset is checking all of the boxes when it comes to data quality, be it completeness, uniqueness, or the column count. And if Bob is interested, he can actually look at all of the different data quality rules that have been configured by the data owner. So they can look at each rule and whether this data asset is passing on those rules or not.
And that was going to be my question. Is that something that the consumer of the data is going to have to go and establish? But no, it's more the publisher of the data that's going to go out and define exactly what these parameters are.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And another thing that you can see here is data lineage, which basically tells you how this data asset was generated. What is the underlying data source? What kind of transformations it went through? So, for example, what you're seeing here is a graphical, a very visual graph where you can track the entire data lineage, upstream lineage as well as the downstream lineage. So, for example, what we are seeing here is that the source of this asset is an Amazon S3 bucket.
Okay.
If you go to the next node, you can see that there was a glue crawler that ran that registered this data, this table into the glue data catalog. And then if you go down further, you can also see how it got into the SageMaker catalog. And then there are some other projects who are accessing this data.
Yeah. So I'm able to see who did what and when.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
no more guessing where the data came from. No more guessing on integrity or in a lot of specific business conversations and context, chain of custody becomes a very big thing, and being able to have an immutable record of that is huge.
Exactly. And it's also about, like, as a data consumer, when I'm trying to access some data, I want to know, like, if there is a data pipeline, is there something broken in that pipeline?
Okay.
Right? Data lineage helps you identify that.
Okay. Nice.
So now that I have found this data asset and I think that this is the right data asset for my analysis, how do I get access to this? It's very simple with SageMaker Catalog. You can just simply hit the subscribe button. You can select your project, which is sales analysis project, and just provide a reason. Here I'm just going to say for demo and request access.
Yeah, and while this cooks, looks like we've got a comment from the chat. Manish Kumar from LinkedIn is saying it's the first time he joins Pi Day and believes that Jasmine should ditch the hat. I think you should not.
I don't plan to ditch my hat, but thank you for being here.
This looks like it's done baking, Utkarsh. So what do we got now as our next step?
So now what has happened here is that SageMaker Catalog has sent this request to the owner of the data.
Okay.
So let's switch into the shoes of the owner of the data. So I'm going to switch into a different app. Here I have a different project selected. This is the project that actually published this table to the SageMaker Catalog. And now if I go to my subscription request tab, I can see that there's a pending request here. I can look at this request, and now I can see who has requested access. I can see from what project, for what reason are they requesting access. And now I can approve this request. And when I'm approving this request, I have two options. I can approve this with full access. What that means is the subscriber is going to get access to the entire table, all the rows and columns in the table. But in this case, I know as a data owner that this has some sensitive data. This has some personally identifiable information about customers, and I want to hide that information.
Okay.
So I can approve this with row and column filters. I'm going to choose a filter, and I can create a filter here. I'm going to show you how to create a filter to sort of restrict the access to certain columns. So I'm going to call it no sensitive data, and I can select a filter type, which can be either a column or row filter. I'm selecting the column filter. I'll just select this checkbox, which selects all the columns, but then now I can hide some of the personally identified columns.
Okay.
Like I can remove customer name, email, phone, and address. Those are the columns I don't want to give access, and I can just simply create the filter.
And this is huge for ensuring, principles least access, ensuring role-based access controls are still a thing, making sure that people only have the bare minimum amount of access to do the thing that is required for them to go and execute their job and succeed at the task.
Exactly. And what SageMaker Catalog does is it kind of abstracts the technical complexities involved in creating this fine-grained access control. You saw how visually how user-friendly the interface was, and it's the same interface across, irrespective of where your data is. It could be in the Lakehouse, it could be in Redshift, or any other data source. You will create this column filter or row filter exactly in the same language that you saw on the screen.
All right, we're getting a lot of questions in the chat here. So is the lineage generated in an automated way?
Ooh.
Yes. That's a great question. Yes, lineage is generated in an automated way for some of the sources. For example, lineage from Glue Data Catalog, lineage from Redshift, lineage from Visual ETL flow. All of that can be captured automatically. And so when you are publishing your asset to the catalog, SageMaker Catalog does the work of fetching the lineage, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Someone says, "Oh, this is great with compliance and governances."
I'm glad they feel that way. And that's exactly the goal of SageMaker Catalog.
Yeah. Can a custom meta model be defined for metadata?
Oh,
Yes, absolutely, it can be defined. It's a completely open catalog. So we have the way it works is that we have certain types of asset for which we have some metadata that is predefined. For example, if you're looking to publish a table in the lakehouse, there's metadata that comes out of the box. You don't have to worry about that. But on top of that, when you want to add business metadata, you can define what metadata you want, because that varies across the organization, right? Some organizations different organizations have different requirements
Okay.
from a compliance and governance standpoint, and they can build their own metadata model.
Okay.
fantastic. All right. So what's the next in the demo?
Right, so now we are back to that screen where now I can see my no sensitive data filter. I can select that and approve the access.
Okay. And while this is going, wow. Okay. Never mind.
It's just 2 seconds. And what happened here, just to help you understand, is that SageMaker Catalog, once the subscription is approved, SageMaker Catalog can go into the underlying system. In this case, it's the SageMaker Lakehouse, and create physical grant on behalf of the data owner. So they don't have to go and work at the technical layer. So now if we go back to our project where Bob was doing his analysis, and we go back to the data tab, what we're going to see that the sales data table starts to show up. And if we click on this, what we'll see is that all of the columns that were given access to, Bob can see those columns here. And if you should note that the personally identified columns like customer name and email, those details are hidden. So all Bob can now do is he can choose the tool of his choice. In this case, we're going to use Athena to query. And what it does, it opens Amazon Athena in the SQL editor, and Bob can just simply start querying the sales data table along with all the other data that he has access to from within SageMaker Unified Studio. So here we ran a simple query that queried the sales data. And if you want to run a query that joins the sales data with other tables, we can do that as well.
Yeah. You guys, we're coming to the end of our time here. This demo, I love seeing it. I want to see more. How can I learn more?
You can learn more by going to the AWS console and get started with Amazon SageMaker. All you have to do is create a SageMaker domain, and it literally takes a minute to get started.
Okay. Nice.
Well, that is pretty fantastic. And chat, folks, we want to check in on that poll that we had. Primary use case for Amazon SageMaker Catalog. We can bring that up. Both. All right. Yep. That is absolutely correct. Thank you for your participation, chat. And Utkarsh, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate what you've shown us. We got a lot of people excited about the art of the possible here for data and AI governance. And please stay tuned. We've got a lot more exciting stuff.
While you're waiting on us to come back for our next one, we have a chat. So speaking of getting started, if you take our survey, the first 100 people will get $25 in AWS credits. And hey, maybe you can go in and apply that to your account and start building something in SageMaker. But we will be back with more, so stay tuned.